Have you ever felt the heartbreak of forgetting something as precious as a loved one's name? Have you ever stood in a familiar place only to feel lost, unable to remember where you were going? And what about the fear of realizing you left the stove on for hours, with no memory of when you last used it? At 80 years old, I faced these painful moments. I forgot my grandson's name at his birthday, lost my way home from the supermarket, and lived in constant fear of what I might forget next. It was a mix of shame, sadness, and deep worry that I was slowly slipping away. Then something unexpected changed everything. A simple daily spoonful of oil began to restore what I thought I had lost. In this video, I'll share how I moved from the darkness of memory loss to regaining clarity and confidence. I'll also explain the science behind this forgotten oil and the small but powerful habits that helped me reclaim myself. Stay until the end, because what you discover here may be the key to sharper focus, stronger memory, and renewed hope for you or someone you care about. Let us begin this poignant story, a deeply personal struggle against the creeping fog of memory loss. It started so subtly, so quietly, that I hardly noticed at first. Like a thief in the night, it stole small fragments of my mind, leaving me to dismiss the early signs as nothing more than quirks of aging. At first, they were fleeting lapses, details that once seemed unshakable, now slipped away like water through my hands. These weren't grand failures, but tiny cracks in the foundation of my memory. Still, they marked the beginning of a journey I never imagined I'd face. It began with the simplest things. I would walk into a room with purpose, only to stand still, unable to remember why I had entered. I'd open the refrigerator door and stare blankly, forgetting what I was searching for. Mornings grew disorienting. I'd wake up struggling to recall the day of the week or the tasks I had planned. At first, these seemed like minor inconveniences, easy to brush off with a laugh or a shrug. But over time, each small lapse piled up, and soon it felt like a mountain I could no longer ignore. Then came the struggle with words, a far more troubling sign. In the middle of conversations that once brought me joy, I found myself reaching for the simplest terms. Even a word like chair would vanish, leaving me fumbling to describe it as that thing you sit on. My grandchildren would look at me with wide, innocent eyes, expressions mixed with tenderness and quiet concern. I laughed it off, masking their worry with a joke, but inside, dread was taking root. Each stumble, each forgotten word felt like a betrayal of the quick-witted grandfather I had always been, the one who could tell a story or solve a puzzle with ease. The fear grew louder, whispering of worse things to come. One afternoon stands out clearly in my mind. It was a simple trip to the supermarket, a place I had visited countless times, its aisles as familiar as the lines on my hands. I shopped as usual, greeted the cashier, and stepped outside into the sunlight. But suddenly, the familiar world shifted. The streets, the shop signs, even the hum of traffic felt foreign, as if I had been dropped into a strange city. I froze, heart pounding, a lump rising in my throat. Which way was home? I scanned the streets, the storefronts, the faces passing by, searching for something familiar, but everything blurred into strangeness. Long, agonizing minutes passed before a flicker of recognition guided me back. When I finally reached my doorstep, my hands trembled as I turned the key, the weight of that moment pressing heavily on my shoulders. Inside, my daughter noticed instantly. The look on my face, the unsteady step. I tried to dismiss it as a silly lapse, but the quiver in my voice betrayed me. When I told her what had happened, tears welled in her eyes. She wrapped her arms around me, whispering, "Dad, we have to do something. This isn't normal." Her words, filled with love, cut deep. From then on, my family became quiet sentinels. My eldest grandson took charge of my bank accounts, his gentle patience soothing my bruised pride. My daughter began joining me on errands, her presence a steady hand. My son-in-law checked the stove and appliances each time he visited, ensuring nothing was left to chance. Their care was a lifeline, yet it carried a sting. I had always been the protector, the guide, the rock for my family. Now, their vigilance left me feeling like a child again, stripped of the independence I had once cherished. My ability to navigate the world with confidence was fading. Going out alone filled me with anxiety, haunted by the fear of getting lost again. Cooking, once a joyful ritual, became dangerous. I remember leaving a pot simmering on the stove, lost in distraction, until the sharp smell of burning metal snapped me back. That near disaster shook me. It was a painful reminder that my lapses could put not just myself, but others at risk. Even conversations with friends, once effortless, became strained. I would begin a story only to trail off or repeat myself without realizing it. Their polite nods tried to hide discomfort, but I could feel it. My sense of self, my confidence, my independence, all of it seemed to crumble piece by piece. The more I noticed my lapses, the more I feared what lay ahead. Every forgotten name, every misplaced item felt like another step toward an abyss I couldn't quite define but could feel pulling me closer. I wondered if this was the beginning of an inevitable decline, a slow unraveling I was powerless to stop. Yet, without warning, my story was about to change. A chance encounter introduced me to a remedy no one had thought to mention, an old, forgotten oil that would alter the course of my life. The fear of Alzheimer's loomed larger after the supermarket incident and the worried looks on my family's faces. My daughter, ever practical, urged me gently but firmly, "Dad, let's see a doctor just to be sure. We need to rule things out." Reluctantly, I agreed. One crisp morning, with my heart heavy and my palms damp, I stepped into the office of a neurologist who specialized in memory disorders. It was a threshold I never thought I would cross, and it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. The waiting room was filled with people my age or older, some with their children, others alone, faces lined with the same quiet fear I carried. The air itself seemed thick with unspoken questions, heavy with what might soon be revealed. When my name was called, I followed the nurse slowly, as if each step could delay the inevitable. The neurologist was kind but direct, professional yet warm. He asked about my age, my lifestyle, my family's history. Had anyone been diagnosed with dementia? Did I smoke, drink, or exercise? Each question felt like another layer of my vulnerability being uncovered. Then came the cognitive tests. Simple tasks on the surface, yet they left me feeling exposed. He asked me to memorize 3 words: apple, chair, and clock. I smiled, certain it was too easy. But minutes later, when he asked me to recall them, my mind went blank. Not a single word came back. Next, he handed me a sheet of paper and asked me to draw a clock, showing the time as 10 minutes past 11. My hand trembled as I drew the circle, but when I tried to place the numbers, everything fell apart. The hours were scattered, the hands misplaced, and confusion took over. Then came more questions. What day is it? What city are we in? Who is the current president? Some answers came quickly, but others slipped away like sand through my fingers. When the tests ended, the doctor's face was serious yet measured. He told me it was mild cognitive impairment, or MCI. He explained that it wasn't Alzheimer's, not yet, but a warning stage that could progress to something more severe. The word Alzheimer's lingered in the air, chilling me to the bone. He prescribed medications, supplements, antioxidants, and a regimen to slow the decline. He urged me to stay mentally active, read, solve puzzles, take daily walks, keep my mind sharp. For weeks, I followed his advice like a lifeline. Each morning, I lined up the pills like soldiers in a battle I was determined to fight. I forced myself to read the newspaper, though focusing was hard. I tackled crosswords and memory games, hoping to strengthen the crumbling walls of my mind. But the truth was hard to escape. The lapses persisted. A clear morning here and there gave me fleeting hope, But the forgotten words and misplaced keys always returned. And worse than the symptoms was the fear. A constant whisper that one day I might not recognize my home, my family, or even myself. I smiled for my loved ones, but inside I was unraveling, standing on the edge of despair. What I didn't realize was that a chance discovery would soon change everything. Still, I was determined not to let my family watch me fade into a burden. I clung to the doctor's advice as my blueprint. I overhauled my diet, replacing sugary snacks with colorful fruits and vegetables. Blueberries, praised for their memory-boosting power, became part of my daily routine. Their sharp taste felt like a small act of defiance. I even forced myself to eat salmon rich in omega-3s, grilling it twice a week despite my dislike for its flavor. Supplements began to crowd my kitchen counter. Omega-3 capsules, ginkgo biloba, ginseng extract, phosphatidyl serene, pills with names I could hardly pronounce, each swallowed with hope. My mornings looked more like a pharmacist's bench, every capsule taken like a prayer for improvement. I embraced mental exercises with the same determination. Sudoku, crosswords, and word searches filled my afternoons. I even downloaded a memory training app, its bright interface in sharp contrast to the fog clouding my mind. For 30 minutes each day, I tapped through games, willing my brain to hold on to what was slipping away. At first, these efforts gave me strength, as though I were fighting a valiant war against forgetfulness. But as weeks became months, the truth was unavoidable. The lapses kept coming. I would wander into the kitchen and stand there, purpose gone. I repeated stories to my family while they smiled politely. My glasses, keys, and remote disappeared, as if swallowed by the house. Each lost item felt like a small, private defeat. The supplements, the diet, the puzzles, they weren't enough. I felt like a soldier in a losing battle. One afternoon I sat at the table, my supplement bottles spread out like tiny trophies of hope, and asked myself, is this working? A cold wave of despair rolled through me. For the first time, I let the full weight of my fear and frustration settle in. Maybe this was the beginning of the end. A slow, irreversible fade. I turned to old photos of my grandchildren, faces full of moments I could no longer always recall. The man who once remembered every detail of a book or held court in conversation felt increasingly like a stranger. At night, I caught my reflection and searched for traces of who I'd been, whispering, "Where did I go?" Just when hope seemed exhausted, something unexpected shifted my path. That was the day I discovered the forgotten oil. It was an ordinary afternoon, the kind where time stretched endlessly while my thoughts circled without answers. I sat on my usual bench in the park, watching children laugh and chase each other, their joy blending with the songs of birds. The world felt vibrant, yet I remained stuck, weighed down by my fears. Then I saw Anthony, a lifelong friend and neighbor I hadn't spoken to in months. At 82, he moved with a vitality that surprised me. Steady steps, sharp words, and a memory as clear as ever. We slipped easily into conversation, recalling old friends, shared moments, and the fragile nature of growing older. In a moment of weakness, I shared my struggles, the lapses, the doctor visits, the pills that promised miracles but delivered little. I admitted the fear that haunted me each morning, the dread of losing myself completely. Anthony listened quietly, his face filled with understanding. When I finished, he leaned closer, a faint smile suggesting he carried a secret worth sharing. "I went through something similar a couple of years ago," he said softly. "But I found something that changed everything." My curiosity sharpened, and I pressed him for details. That's when he spoke words I never expected. Extra virgin coconut oil. I stared at him, torn between skepticism and intrigue. Coconut oil, the same thing I had used to fry plantains or moisturize my skin. Could something so ordinary really hold the key to my recovery? Sensing my doubt, Anthony explained further. He spoke of how coconut oil had long been valued in tropical cultures, not just for cooking or skincare, but for its ability to nourish the mind. He described its medium-chain triglycerides, special fats the brain could use as an alternative fuel when glucose metabolism began to falter, something common with aging brains. He mentioned promising studies suggesting coconut oil could sharpen focus, improve clarity, and even support short-term memory. I was skeptical. How could a kitchen staple succeed where pills and exercises had failed? Yet Anthony's conviction was firm. "Take a spoonful a day," he urged, his eyes shining with certainty. "You've got nothing to lose, and everything to gain." That night, his words echoed in my mind. What if he was right? What if this simple, overlooked remedy could change my story? The next morning, I made a choice, a leap of faith into a future I had nearly stopped hoping for. Anthony told me he had been taking extra virgin coconut oil every day, and he swore it kept his memory sharp, his focus steady, even his mood uplifted. At first, I was doubtful. Coconut oil? To me, it was something for cooking tropical dishes or rubbing on dry skin. How could it possibly affect something as complex as memory? Yet the clarity in his mind, the quick wit, the way he recalled events from decades ago made me pause. I couldn't ignore the spark in his eyes or the confidence in his voice. The very next day, I found myself in the health food store, staring at rows of oils. There it was, a dark glass bottle labeled extra virgin coconut oil, cold-pressed organic. I picked it up, turning it in my hands, studying the label as if it might hold a hidden answer. The bottle felt cool and solid, yet doubts swirled in my mind. Could this really help? Was it just another passing fad? Still, Anthony's conviction echoed in me. I took the bottle home, set it on my kitchen counter, and stared at it, wondering if this could be the key to reclaiming what I feared was lost. Before I began, though, I needed to understand. So I sat at my computer and started researching. What exactly was coconut oil, and why might it help with memory? What I discovered was far more fascinating than I expected, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of real hope. Why does coconut oil stand out? Unlike the typical vegetable oils in most kitchens, its power lies in its high content of medium-chain triglycerides, or MCTs. If that sounds too technical, let me explain. MCTs are a special type of fat that the body handles differently from the long-chain fats found in butter or olive oil. Instead of lingering in the digestive system, MCTs go straight to the liver, where they're converted into ketones, an alternative energy source for the body and, most importantly, the brain. This is where it gets interesting. When we're young, our brains rely heavily on glucose, the sugar in our blood, to fuel memory, focus, and clear thinking. But as we age, the brain becomes less efficient at using glucose. That's when forgetfulness, poor concentration, and brain fog begin to creep in, especially for those with mild cognitive impairment or early signs of Alzheimer's. Ketones, however, bypass this problem. They slip directly into neurons like a VIP pass, delivering energy right where it's needed most. This process can support better neuron function, sharpen memory, and improve overall cognitive performance. And this wasn't just a vague claim from health blogs. I found solid scientific evidence to back it up. One study in the Journal of Neurobiology of Aging caught my attention. Researchers found that MCTs from coconut oil improved cognitive function in older adults with mild cognitive impairment. The results were not a cure, but they showed real improvements in memory and mental clarity. Then there was the story of Dr. Mary Newport, a neonatologist whose personal experience added weight to the science. Her husband Steve was battling advanced Alzheimer's, and when conventional treatments failed, she turned to coconut oil. She documented how adding MCT-rich coconut oil to his diet brought noticeable changes, greater lucidity, better orientation, and even the ability to hold conversations again. Her book, Alzheimer's Disease: What If There Was a Cure?, became a beacon of hope, sparking global interest in coconut oil's potential. I knew results would vary, and no remedy guaranteed miracles. But the blend of scientific studies, Dr. Newport's testimony, and Anthony's example lit a spark in me. If there was even a small chance this could help, I was ready to try. That evening, I opened the bottle of coconut oil, scooped out a spoonful, and paused. Its smooth texture and faint sweetness were unexpectedly pleasant. I swallowed, not knowing what to expect, but hopeful that this small act might be the first step towards something greater. The first morning I tried coconut oil, I woke up with the same mental haze that had become a constant companion. I shuffled into the kitchen, still groggy, and stared at the bottle on the counter. I'd read that many people take it on an empty stomach to improve absorption, so I decided to start there. I measured a single tablespoon, the glossy oil glistening in the spoon. Its taste was mild, with just a gentle hint of coconut, comforting rather than strange. I swallowed it, followed with a glass of water, and went about my morning. I wasn't expecting miracles, only curious to see what might unfold. For the first week, I kept the routine simple, 1 tablespoon each morning before breakfast. As I grew more comfortable, I began experimenting. I discovered bulletproof coffee, blending a spoonful into my morning brew, turning it creamy and frothy, like a small indulgence. I stirred it into oatmeal, drizzled it over roasted vegetables, even used it for scrambled eggs. The versatility surprised me. It didn't feel like another health chore, but slipped easily into my diet. Unlike other routines I had tried, this was simple, enjoyable, and sustainable. The first days passed quietly, with no dramatic changes, but something subtle was beginning to shift. I still had my usual lapses, misplacing keys, forgetting why I'd walked into the living room, or stumbling over a friend's name. But around the second week, something shifted. I was on the phone with my daughter Sarah when she asked about our old neighbor who always walked his dog past our house. Without thinking, I replied, "Oh, Mr. Ernest. He had that big German Shepherd Bruno and always wore that worn brown cap." The details flowed out so naturally that even I was surprised. Sarah paused, then laughed. "Dad, when did you get so good at remembering things?" We laughed together, but inside I was stunned. Recall like that hadn't come easily in years. Over the following weeks, more small victories appeared. At the grocery store, I needed my shopping list less and less, recalling items with a clarity I thought I'd lost. Conversations with my grandchildren felt easier, their names rolling off my tongue without hesitation. I even began finishing my sentences without that frustrating mid-thought blankness. But the moment that struck me most came one Sunday afternoon during a family lunch. We were reminiscing about a long-ago trip to a countryside cabin when the kids were little. Usually I would sit quietly, unable to contribute because the details seemed locked away in a vault I couldn't reach. But that day was different. Suddenly, memories flowed. I recalled the name of the small town we visited, the creaky old Ford we drove, even the song we sang together on the ride home. My daughter's eyes widened in disbelief, and my son-in-law burst out laughing. "Dad, it's like you've unlocked a time machine," he said. The room filled with laughter, but for me, it was more than a light-hearted moment. It was proof something was changing. My mind felt sharper, clearer, as if a fog was finally lifting. And it wasn't only my memory. My mood shifted too. The anxiety that once gripped me when I forgot a name or stumbled in conversation began to fade. I felt calmer, more present, more like the person I used to be. My energy grew, and I found myself looking forward to the day instead of fearing those blank moments. For the first time in years, I felt hope return. It wasn't that coconut oil was some magic cure, but rather a spark that ignited a bigger transformation. I realized true memory health isn't just about what you eat. It's about how you live. Alongside coconut oil, I began making other small but intentional changes that amplified its effects. It became a holistic approach, building a brain-healthy lifestyle. The first step was my diet. For years, I'd eaten without much thought. Sugary snacks, processed foods, white bread, and fast food were my staples. I loved my afternoon cookies and double-sugared coffee, but I knew they weren't helping my brain. So, I started small. I cut back on sugar, trading my sweetened coffee for black coffee with a touch of cinnamon. Cookies were replaced with fruit or a handful of nuts. My meals became colorful with brain-boosting foods, leafy greens like spinach and kale, bright vegetables like carrots and bell peppers, and fatty fish like salmon rich in omega-3s. The difference wasn't just in my memory. I felt more energized and alert overall. Then I turned to exercising my mind. Crosswords and puzzles had always seemed intimidating, but I gave them a try. I started with simple ones in the newspaper, celebrating each small win as I filled in the blanks, then gradually moved on to harder challenges. I picked up reading again, not heavy textbooks, but light novels that kept me engaged and sharpened my focus. I even set a weekly goal to learn a new word, using it in conversations or writing it down in a journal to make it stick. And beyond all that, I realized social connection was another pillar for keeping my brain alive. Memory lapses once made me withdraw. I felt embarrassed stumbling over words or forgetting names in public, but I pushed myself to reconnect. I began calling old friends, chatting with neighbors over the fence, and joining family gatherings. Each conversation felt like exercise for my brain, strengthening my ability to engage and recall. The laughter and warmth of those interactions lifted my spirits in ways I hadn't expected. Physical movement also became a game changer. I wasn't about to run a marathon, but I started walking. At first, just to the mailbox, then around the block. Soon, I was strolling for 30 minutes a day, breathing fresh air and soaking up the sunlight. Those walks didn't just clear my head, they sharpened my mind and boosted my energy. Finally, I tackled sleep. For years, I'd stayed up late watching TV or scrolling on my phone, only to wake up groggy and unrested. I created a routine, going to bed at the same time each night, turning off screens an hour before sleep, and unwinding with a book or chamomile tea. Over time, my rest grew deeper, and I woke refreshed. I realized a well-rested brain is always a sharper brain. While my journey has been transformative, coconut oil is not a one-size-fits-all solution, and it shouldn't be taken blindly. Quality matters. Many supermarket brands are refined, bleached, or processed with chemicals that strip away vital nutrients. For the best results, choose extra virgin coconut oil, cold-pressed and organic. Always check the label and avoid refined oils or those with additives. And remember, everyone's body is different. If you have high cholesterol, liver issues, or other health concerns, it's important to consult your doctor first. I did, and blood tests gave me peace of mind that it was safe to proceed. Start small. Coconut oil is calorie-dense, and too much at once can cause digestive upset. I began with a tablespoon a day, while some people prefer even less, gradually increasing as their body adjusts. And don't expect miracles overnight. Coconut oil is not a cure-all. It works best as part of a broader, healthy lifestyle, good nutrition, physical and mental activity, strong social connections, and restful sleep. Patience is key. Today, at 80, I feel like I've reclaimed a part of myself I thought was gone forever. Just a year ago, I struggled to recognize faces, froze mid-sentence, searching for words, and lived under the shadow of fear. That mental fog felt like a thief stealing pieces of my life. My memories, my confidence, my sense of self. Today, they feel restored. I remember my grandson's birthday without checking a calendar. I tell stories from my youth with vivid detail, laughing with my family as we relive those moments together. Most importantly, I feel clear, present, and hopeful. It wasn't a miracle or an instant cure. The change came from small, consistent steps: a spoonful of coconut oil, a healthier diet, daily walks, mental exercises, and a commitment to living fully. Coconut oil isn't magic, and it may not work the same for everyone, but it taught me something important. It's never too late to try. It's never too late to care for your body and mind. If you're noticing memory slips or watching a loved one struggle, don't give up. Sometimes the solution is simpler than you think. A new habit, a small change, a spark of hope. For me, it began with a bottle of coconut oil and the decision to keep going. If I could do it, so can you. Thank you for staying with me on this journey, from the fog of memory loss to rediscovering clarity and hope through extra virgin coconut oil and simple lifestyle changes. I wish you all good health, happiness, and peace. And remember to subscribe to my channel, Healthy Aging Blueprint, for more stories and guidance.